According to the LA Dodgers website, our mission is to create a culture where diverse voices and experiences are valued. Our people feel empowered by their connections to each other, and the team and all employees, feel they can succeed. If you're Catholic, does that really apply to you? And more importantly, do they care? Hey folks, Mark here with the Rational Workforce. Thanks so much for tuning in for another episode. And just by way of a heads up, today's episode might be considered a little spicy by some. We're going to be talking about the LA Dodgers, their decision to honor a group called the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence for a community award at the time of broadcasting that's set to go on this evening. And the back and forth that kind of happened that got us to the point that we're at today. So you may have heard bits and pieces of what's going on. My contention is you may not have heard the full story. But speaking as a lifelong Catholic, as someone who I would describe as passionate about my faith, but not necessarily the institution, I want to be transparent with you that I'm going to be telling this story with much deeper insight from one side of the equation than the other. But for those of you who may not be aware of what's happening, let's take a quick look and we'll see what all the hubbub's about. So this is the homepage for the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence, and rather than me characterize the group using my own words, we're going to use what they write themselves. So the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence are a leading-edge order of queer and trans nuns. We believe all people have a right to express their unique joy and beauty. Since our first appearance in San Francisco on Easter Sunday in 1979, the Sisters have devoted ourselves to community service, ministry, and outreach on the edges, and to promoting human rights, respect for diversity, and spiritual enlightenment. We use humor and irreverent wit to expose the forces of bigotry, complacency, and guilt that chain the human spirit. Okay, nothing outlandish about that. Lord knows that there are plenty of troops and organizations that could bubble up under the same or a similar manner. And, once the Dodgers announced that they were going to be honoring this group was when the pushback started, not surprisingly, from other Catholics, from the Catholic faith themselves, and from mostly conservative senators and politicians and things of that nature. And, one of the ways that this has been categorized is that this is just a bunch of uptight conservatives and overly religious people that are pissed off because the sisters dress as Catholic nuns, and it's a mockery, right? And they've used those words in their description and their complaints about it, is that it's a mockery of the Catholic faith. And, I think that the media has teed it up as just these are a bunch of people that are going around doing nothing but helping the community and doing it in a fun and campy way, dressed as nuns. And I mean, there have been drag performances of people dressed as nuns and comedies. There was a show with Robbie Coltrane, who was Hagrid in the Harry Potter movies, and Eric Idle from Monty Python, called Nuns on the Run. And they did the whole movie as nuns in drag. So that's not necessarily the crux of what's so troublesome, and we'll get into that in a minute. But let's take a look at what the pushback was from the league. So some Catholic players actually pushed back against it. This was one by a gentleman who pitches for the Washington Nationals. And, I'll scroll through the story because there's a part I want to highlight. And this is generally how the pushback has been teed up, right? Ultra-conservative influences outside of the Dodgers in Los Angeles, including Florida Senator Marco Rubio and the Catholic League president, expressed outrage about the decision, claiming the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence use of drag attire mixed with religious imagery is offensive to Catholics. So, again, they're just kind of teeing it up as Catholics are upset because these people wear nuns' habits and are part of the LGBTQ community. I don't dispute that some people have concerns that only go that deep, but as we'll get to in a minute, there's some other stuff that I think you should be aware of before you rush to judgment on just how closed-minded and evil these Catholics and conservatives are. So anyway, there was pushback the Dodgers rescinded the invitation. There was pushback against that, and then they re-invited the sisters. And what you can see on the screen here is an official statement from the Dodgers re-inviting them and kind of explaining their situation. So I won't get into it. You can find it for yourself on Twitter. But they capitulated, and the ceremony is back on. Okay, that's great. And looking at how this is categorized, right? The right-wing pressure campaign to shame the LA Dodgers out of a drag charity performance really backfired. And there's a bunch of categorizations as like this is a victory, and we've struck down those evil Catholics and evil conservatives too. And if you look at how the media is playing this out, is that exactly what we had talked about before. This is just a group of people that use humor and irreverence and kind of outlandish, almost kabuki style makeup to prove a point, and they go out there and help the community. And there's no dispute that they have done work in the community and in communities that I think were largely underserved and much to the shame of the Catholic Church was not supported. Folks that were suffering from AIDS in the 80s and things like that. So there's no dispute there. But I think just simply stating that it's kind of the drag essence that rubs Catholics the wrong way is not getting to the whole problem. So let's go a little deeper in this article. There are pictures of them at public events. Here they are reading books to children. There's been a lot of hoopla about that. No comment there. And if you scroll down, you can see some statements from the sisters themselves, right? I've never seen a sister mocking religion openly, they say. Our symbolism is a statement about caregiving and nurturing a community that we deeply identify with and are a part of. And so that is where the nun image comes from, and then goes on to explain it. So take a look at this. I've never seen a sister mocking religion openly. Let's pressure test that a little bit. So doing a quick search on the web, you can see some of the events they've recently had. So, for example, the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence hosted a Celebrate Easter with Hunky Jesus and Foxy Mary contests. Now, for those of you that aren't familiar with the faith, hopefully you know who Jesus is. We see as our Savior, as someone who made the ultimate sacrifice and took on the sins of humanity so that we may not have to pay that price, that we may have eternal life. Mary, divinely selected to be his mother. There are no holier elements of the Catholic faith and of Christendom than these two figures, and the sisters are celebrating them with Hunky Jesus and Foxy Mary contests, where you can see how these people are dressed. So let's go back to the statement. I've never seen a sister mocking religion openly. That feels an awful lot like mocking. The next video I want to show you is something that former Senator Tulsi Gabbard just had in her Twitter feed today, and it's graphic, and you're potentially going to get offended by it. So there's your warning. In 3, 2, 1, here we go. So this is a video that was from one of their events that are not mocking Christianity. So there you can see someone doing a pole dance on the cross as someone representing Jesus is on the cross during one of their shows. So I don't know, that looks like mocking religion to me. The cross is one of the most sacred and holy symbols to Catholics. And to see it, I'm going to just use the word desecrated in that way, crosses the line from we're just a good-natured group of people that are wearing habits and doing good deeds into something that feels a lot more sinister and a lot more on the nose of what those who push back against us was saying, is that they're anti-Catholic and anti-religion. So I say all that to get to this. It feels like there are double standards at play when it comes to certain faiths and certain faith traditions. And I think that absolutely spills over into the workforce. Now, if you take a look at the community, the faith community that is encompassed by like the LA Dodgers area, This is some research that I did. You can see the sources down here. But the Roman Catholic Archdiocese of Los Angeles is the largest diocese in the United States, with nearly 5 million Catholics and 238 parishes organized in 5 pastoral regions. So we are not talking about an insignificant community of believers. That the people who are going to be honored at this show are being potentially being marginalized and pushed to the side, and being told that this particular ideology trumps your faith and your ideology. And you can feel how you like from a consumer standpoint, but if you're an employee working for that organization and you just happen to be Catholic, and you know the amount of backlash that kind of erupted after the organization said that they were going to rescind the invitation to the sisters, how comfortable do you feel in that environment? How much do you feel like that employer has your back and respects your wants and needs and respects you? And like, this is the trouble that you get into as employers when you take stands on these issues, right? Now, it's not an indictment of Pride. It's not an indictment of Pride Night or the celebration of Pride Month. That's been going on. The Major League Baseball, all the teams have been celebrating this for years. What's different about it this year? What's causing this pushback? I think, first of all, people are more aware of it. People are more in tune with it. We're in an environment where the Bud Lights and the Targets of the world are getting a lot of headlines these days. But we're also living in a world where I think people are more awake than ever to the fact that sometimes you're not getting the whole truth about things, right? Now, if you just look at the articles that were covering this, again, it paints the sisters as just this wonderfully campy group of people that are going out and doing good work, and all the conservatives and Catholics against it are just these kind of like evil, small-minded trolls that are just pushing back against progress. And, frankly, I call BS on that. If you can look at the video that we showed through Tulsi's feed, if you can take a look at, some of the pictures and the events, the Hunky Jesus and Foxy Mary, and still feel like there isn't some sort of a deliberate attempt to minimize, to just denigrate Catholics. I don't know. You see the proof right there. You can agree with it or not agree with it, but understand why Catholics had such a strong reaction to this, and just understand a little more about the story. I think another thing that I find fascinating about this is that, whether you are a person of faith or whether you are a secularist and you don't believe in any type of divine power, there are things that you hold dear. And when those things are attacked, you feel personally against it. So I understand the community that felt like they were attacked when the offer to honor them was rescinded. But I don't see a Hunky Muhammad night. I don't see any of those types of activities. What if we picked members that are emblematic of this community, right? And had a night or had an event that minimalized that or made a joke out of it. We live in a time when a tweet from 10 years ago can cause somebody to lose their job. Yet we openly support things like this and say that it's okay, and everyone else needs to just kind of shut up and roll with it. I think that's wrong. And I think that it's important that if people are going to stay on the sidelines of this and you want to form an opinion about it, at least have different views through the lens to render that decision. This is something that personally gets me hot under the collar, because earlier this year, we found out that one of the field offices of the FBI had tagged Catholics who believe in traditional Latin Mass and some of the older practices of Catholicism. Said we were a potential hate group. So Catholic churches were burned a lot in the wake of Floyd. They were burned a lot during the pandemic. Like, we're not this kind of group has all powerful control over everything in the world. Like, we're consistently taking it on the chin from a couple different directions. You don't really see that in the news, but it happens, and I completely understand the people who say, well, the Catholic Church has had some awful things in our history. And look, I grew up not part of the Boston Archdiocese, but in the shadow of it, just 20 minutes north of it. And the atrocities and the abuse and the sexual deviancy that happened within the faith is beyond foul. It is beyond vile. The one place in the world where people should feel comforted and safe should be in the church. And they violated every element of that and then covered it up. And it happened multiple times in multiple areas. There is no excuse. There is no defense for that. And if I'm being honest with you, I actually left the faith for a while after that because the sense of betrayal felt so deep. That said, as I said at the top of the discussion, or maybe I didn't, I thought I did, but I'll repeat it. I'm in love with the faith, but not the institution behind it. Man is fallible, and we have lots of things to fix. So absolutely, anyone that's saying, yeah, but what about the Catholic Church? I'm behind you on that. And we are actively working to clean things up in the faith. That said, we can hold two things in our mind at the same time, or we should be able to, that the church had done some absolutely abhorrent behaviors that needs to be addressed, and that stuff like we just showed in this video is also highly offensive and crosses lines, right? You can agree with it, you cannot. I just wanted to make sure that you had a different viewpoint. That's what this channel is all about. So thank you for tuning in. I hope you liked it. If you didn't, thanks for staying this long. Just leave a comment. Let me know what you think. Let me know where you stand on the issue. Let me know what you'd like to cover. And please click like, click subscribe, click the bell. We would love to have you come back for another topic. So with that, I hope you all have a great rest of the day. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you later. Bye.